Some of the most damaging relationships are the hardest ones to explain, and they don't have to look extreme in order to be deeply harmful. Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we make sense of what never quite made sense. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more, it's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin moving forward. You need a coach. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. Welcome back to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson, and today I'm joined by two incredible members of our community for the next CNG community chat, and it's all about boundaries. We're talking about what boundaries even meant to us before we understood we were in a narcissistic relationship, what it felt like the first time we tried to set one, and the guilt, fear, and exhaustion that came with it. These two ladies also share what it was like to finally have a boundary respected and why that moment can feel almost shocking after years of having your needs dismissed, deflected, and used against you. If you've ever felt guilty for having needs, if you've ever wondered why voicing something so simple felt so terrifying, if you've ever been told that your boundaries were the problem in your relationship, then this episode is for you. So today I am joined by Miranda and Nicole, and I cannot thank them enough for doing this. One of my deep, deep passions about CNG is that it be a community. So I thank you both for being here and being willing to add your voice to this community. And today we're talking about boundaries, so I want to just get us started. Did you guys know what boundaries were, or how would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on setting boundaries before you entered this, whatever relationship brought you to this podcast?
I can start us off here. I have learned recently, at least about myself, that I'm kind of a chronic people pleaser. So I think I had kind of an idea of like what boundaries were, but I didn't really know how to enforce them or really even when to set them with people. Um, and sometimes it can also just be like a really scary experience going through that, trying to set those boundaries and seeing how people receive them.
Mm-hmm. So coming into the relationship that brought you here, is it you kind of knew what boundaries were, or was this like I had no clue what I was doing?
I mean, it's kind of hard because I'm 31 now. My relationship started when I was like freshly 18. So I think I was still in that process of figuring out what boundaries were and kind of like growing into myself. And even, yeah, recognizing like, okay, going from a kid where, you maybe have less of an ability to set those boundaries to an adult where I finally get to decide all these things for myself. And kind of growing up in that environment where boundaries weren't really encouraged by my partner. Yeah, it was a tough time, and I definitely don't think that I had them at the start of my relationship.
We're going to talk about whether, you learned them as a kid or not here in just a minute, but I'll shift to Nicole for a second. When you entered whatever relationship it was that brought you here, did you understand boundaries, or was boundaries part of your language?
It wasn't. Honestly, it probably wasn't until recently, being on the other side of healing from this relationship. I guess knowing what they were, but using that in a language and using that as part of a relationship really wasn't exist. I mean, boundaries was like, hey, when you play a sport, these are the boundaries. Like that's what boundaries meant to me, honestly. And in a relationship, I had them, but I didn't realize that they were not being respected
Mhm.
until now, being on the other side of it, I'm seeing, oh, wow, that is a boundary. And it was not me being too needy or too bossy or too controlling. They were having needs. And I was always confused because I thought, I feel like I'm being reasonable by stating, like, I kind of have an issue with this. Can we work through it? And it never really got me anywhere.
Mhm.
And I always thought, oh, just it was the dynamics of the relationship. And so honestly, it wasn't until after and really going through years of healing, um, that I learned what that really was and what it should be in a relationship.
Mhm. So when you guys grew up in your home, like in childhood, were there boundaries in your childhood? Like, were there healthy boundaries within your relationships in your family unit?
It's kinda hard because I think sometimes there were, um, but sometimes there weren't. Me and my sister used to argue a lot, and I know she would come in my room and, like, take all my stuff and do whatever she wanted with it, and at the time, I kinda just thought like, "Okay, get out of my room, that's my stuff," but, like, looking back on it as an adult, it's like, no, that was a boundary violation. Those were my items, my stuff, and my parents a lot of times were kinda like, "Oh, it's fine, just it's your sister, you guys can share stuff, it's okay." But, yeah, that was a boundary violation pretty early on.
It sounds like it. And it wasn't supported. What I'm hearing right there is it wasn't supported by your parents as this is a reasonable boundary or maybe a healthy boundary that should be allowed to, grow and be in place.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Nicole, how about you? Did you grow up in a family with boundaries, healthy boundaries?
Yeah, I mean, looking back, I would say yes, for the most part. I mean, I grew up in a very traditional home, so I wouldn't say I would never have classified them as boundaries as far as like there's just house rules. And it was very maybe more traditional. It's like we are the parents, you are the children, so this is what you do. I come from a big family. I'm the oldest of five, so I also see boundaries a little different because we're just one big open family. So there was sharing all the time. There was bickering all the time. That was just kind of normal to me. So it's hard to say if that was healthy or not because it's just kind of how it was. Everybody was very open and sharing, and me being the oldest, I pushed the boundaries. If there were boundaries, I pushed them quite a bit.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so go figure. I was the boundary pusher.
Yeah. Well, and boundaries put on by parents to a child are a parent child boundary. And those, obviously need to exist for keeping our kids safe while they grow up into adults. But children also need to be able to have boundaries where like Miranda, like you voiced your sister taking your stuff. I mean, that's a boundary that's kind of peer to peer, which is different than a parent child boundary. Even as a child, it's very easy for us to, you know, identify the obvious boundaries, like, being able to protect your personal body. Okay. And there's boundaries there. And as a child, a lot of parents, most parents, hopefully, would teach you that there's boundaries. You say no to physical touch and this kind of thing. But beyond that, the boundaries that get missed is a lot of the emotional boundaries, people stepping all over our feelings, and we're not allowed to have boundaries there.
Think a lot of times in my childhood, my parents were a little dismissive of feelings, which maybe isn't exactly like a boundary violation, but I mean, it was like a way that I was trying to express myself that usually kind of got squashed.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think like having that space to be able to express yourself is important.
When you first hear the word boundary, what feeling comes up? Is it, fear? I'm afraid of doing this, or is it more empowering?
I've definitely reached a place where it's more empowering. I remember very distinctly, like the first time that I didn't feel I had to defend myself or I had to over-explain myself. All of these things that I would get, I mean, it was just like this bait, and I would take it all of the time. And I remember the first time how relieving it was to feel like, one, it was just I was depleted of energy. I just simply did not have the energy anymore. And then the relationship changed where I really had to focus on what was best for my kids. So it became more like focus on what is best for my kids. And that was not engaging and setting really high boundaries so that I could be the best person for them and that
Hmm.
they didn't have to witness, the bickering or me constantly needing to over explain, feel bad. Oh, he doesn't understand who I am. So I feel like I'm always trying to prove to him that I'm different than he thinks I am. And that period of time where I just like had this acceptance and realization like, oh my gosh, it's been 15 years of you trying to help him see who you are and for who you are, and there's absolutely nothing you can do or say to ever change that perspective, and so you need to find peace with it is just going to be what it is, and you need to be okay with it. Talking to
Hmm.
myself.
Talking to yourself, yes, and that's a crucial point. Did you voice these boundaries out loud to him, or were these boundaries for yourself?
These were boundaries for myself, and
Hmm.
I just, really changed how I inter you know, interacted and was very careful. It's all written communication, verbal communication, really is non-existent for a number of years now. So, which kind of makes it easier, kind of makes it harder being written. So I'm very careful of writing conversation, but there's always little digs and always just little things to get the bait. And another thing too, I started seeing my family members and friends see, they're like, "You take it every single time he gives you the bait." You know what I mean? Like, "We want for you to just let it be." And, yeah, it took a long time to get there, but, I now don't feel and it was a journey too, like, at first, I really had to fight the urge not to engage,
Hmm.
and I feel like I'm further down the road where I don't have to fight the urge anymore. Like,
Good.
life is too precious to expel that energy anymore.
Good. And that's the whole point of boundaries, I think, is to protect your own space, your own mental space, emotional space, physical space. Miranda, how about with you? Did you find yourself trying to voice boundaries out loud to a covert narcissistic person, or were these boundaries more for you?
I would definitely say that it was different throughout different times in the relationship. Um, when we had first started dating, back when I was 18, there were a lot more verbal boundaries that I set that were not received well. And it kind of just like turned into this honestly, me just not ever setting them after I would say like 5, 6 years into the relationship. Um, and towards the end of the relationship is actually when I started setting the most boundaries with him. Once I kind of started like reclaiming my body, my space, my energy a little bit more. That was definitely kind of like what actually started, I would say, the downfall of a lot of pieces of our relationship was me setting those boundaries to try to protect myself, to try to just be treated a little bit more like a human. And I think it was on your podcast actually at one point I was listening to about how, like, if you want to see if, like, maybe someone is a little bit narcissistic, like, try to set boundaries with them and see how they respond. And I was like, wow, this is what's going on here. Okay.
That's a great way to really kinda get a feel for whether this person respects you for who you are, is do they respect your boundaries?
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
yeah, boundaries are gonna put us in a position of not self-sacrificing ourself for this person. And that's okay. Healthy relationships, you have boundaries. The only people that don't want us to have boundaries are the people who are benefiting from us not having them, and healthy people in our lives, they respect the boundaries. So good for you for doing that. Did you when you first started setting these boundaries, what were the feelings it brought up? Was it fearful at first?
Yes, but there was also a lot of anger in there too. Um, a lot of the boundaries that I set, like looking back on them, they honestly sound kind of ridiculous that I even had to like say them out loud. Um, like one of them was just that I wanted to be able to take showers by myself. Um,
Yep, that's a
and
good boundary and a very reasonable
yeah,
one.
I
Yeah.
thought so. um, so once it kind of started to like solidify to me that like, maybe this isn't the healthiest relationship, I was scared, I was anxious, but I was also kind of angry just that I even had to vocalize this, but also at him for not kind of like just recognizing that that's like a normal human boundary to have.
That makes sense, and that's a perfect example. It's okay to have to voice this. I mean, if his preference is, obviously not for you to shower alone, but it's okay to voice, "Hey, I'd like to, be able to have some of that time to myself." But what's not okay is for that to never be given, respected, heard, validated, any of those words. And in fact, even then being turned against you, dismissed
Yeah.
or blamed or take it as a personal assault or any of that, when it's really about you having your space for your self care.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like after setting that boundary, there was a lot of like guilt tripping and kind of like, why don't you want to spend this time with me? And it almost it makes you feel like you're doing something wrong.
Yes, it
Or very
does.
like you like you had mentioned, Miranda, when you said it felt weird that I had to vocalize things that just seem like, "Why do I have to vocalize this? It should just
Yeah.
be common sense." I think that was the wake up call too, like, is this no it just becomes normalized that you think, "Oh, this just might be how relationships work. This might be how marriages work." Like, I had never been married before. I had
Yeah.
not been married to somebody for 15 years with, with children. So I'm like, I don't know, is this how it works? And it just you kind of
Mhm.
normalize it because it and then you realize that and I think that's another reason for me why boundaries are so foreign in a relationship because I don't know, I oversimplified maybe that if you are with somebody that you love and care about and respect, all of these things that should be a part of a healthy relationship. Not to say that you don't need boundaries in even a health relationship, but if you're treating each other like you want to be treated with love and respect, uh, are do need boundaries as much as I realize that
Yeah. Well,
I
I
I, I
think
needed
that
them.
you don't need to set them as boundaries, is what happens in a healthy relationship. You're just able to voice your needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just becomes a healthy part of a relationship when you speak up and say, "Hey, I really need to have some time in the morning." For example, I'd like to sit with my cup of coffee in the morning and listen to music without conversation. That's just a good way for me to start my day. That can be voiced as a boundary, but it really starts as a need. This is a good way for me to jumpstart my day, and it's a need, and if it's a healthy relationship, that need is respected and given. That space is given to you. But when that person won't give you that space, that's when we end up starting to call it boundaries.
Yeah. And it's like too when you have those conversations with someone who is more narcissistic in nature. I've noticed, at least in my healthy relationships, you really only have to voice that need once.
Hmm.
And people respect it. It is what it is. Everyone moves on. With someone more narcissistic, at least in my experience, it's like it's a topic that keeps coming up again and again and again of like, when are you going to drop this boundary?
Hmm.
Cuz my ex-husband, actually, he even voiced one time, like in couples therapy, he said, if you're going to keep setting these boundaries with me, I'm not going to be okay in this relationship.
Wow.
And yeah, and it was just like, it kind of wears you down after a while too, of like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be setting these. Maybe I am being unrealistic here because now you're feeling unloved and unappreciated. And I'm just trying to protect my peace, but maybe I'm actually being harmful.
Well, that takes me to the next question is, did you ever feel guilty about setting a boundary, even when you knew the boundary was needed or it was one of your, personal, emotional, or mental needs? Did you feel guilty though?
All the time.
Um,
Um, a lot of times I would like journal at the end of the day, like, okay, I deserve to set these boundaries for myself. So there was a lot of like kind of talking to myself in third person of like, okay, here's why we shouldn't feel guilty. Like, it's okay to feel guilty, but, these are tangible ways that, you don't necessarily need to feel guilty.
Yeah, I found it to be exhausting because I would spend so much energy trying to script the conversation to come out a certain way. And I would try being assertive, I would try being soft, I would try different tones, different time. I spent so much energy to just how to even frame something that you look at and it should be pretty straightforward. So it's just exhausting. And then to feel like, oh, I picked the right time, I picked the right tone, I'm tried to make it as perfect as I could. And then all of that energy just to have it blow up because then you feel like I always question like, am I being unreasonable? Am I being controlling? So you're constantly questioning yourself and over very, again, simple things in life, right? Like
mhm.
giving the respect to call if you're going to be late. Something as simple as that. It was like there was no way I could like have a feeling, upset, sad, angry, frustrated. If that were to happen, I wouldn't. There's no way I could vocalize it.
Yeah. Yeah, vocalizing a boundary or I mean like I said, we started it's a need or a request. And vocalizing that to somebody who's narcissistic, it's like you just gave them a challenge. It's like they're going to just absolutely prove that I'm not going to do that. Did you guys experience that?
Yep, and they will double down. They
Mhm.
will double down on you. Yeah.
They do,
Or
yeah, and Nicole, do you remember any of the boundaries that you tried to set in your relationship?
Um, I mean, yeah, there were communication was one, like just trying to if communication was starting to get pretty heated, I would try to ask like, "Hey, can we just agree to just separate, calm down, and then come back together?" And, I would have to often leave the house, lock myself in a room to try to remove myself,
Mhm.
and it was keep coming back into the room, and so that's why oftentimes I had to leave the house to just remove myself, because if it was getting heated or I was reacting, like, I needed space to get myself calm down and reset, recalibrate, if you will. And there was no way even staying in the same house, different ends of the houses, I would be followed and it would just continue. So,
Yeah, that's a
yeah, that
common
that was
one.
one that was very prominent because it happened a lot.
Yeah, that's very common actually in these relationships that when things get unsettled, they want control of that back, but the control only comes when you finally give in to them. When you finally just, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. When we resort back to the fawning is when you finally find some peace. But if you try to set that boundary of, I'm not going to go there, I'm not going to be the one to fix this or apologize, or, I'll meet in the middle, but I'm not going to go all the way to their side. And when you do that, I mean, it's just never ending. They will follow you through the house. They will wear you out. They will blow up your phone, because they cannot handle you putting that, I mean, in essence, that boundary in place of, I'm not going to be the one to resolve this.
And then there's no, I found too, there's no resolution to it. So
Mhm.
even if it was like, okay, go to bed, you wake up the next morning, um, let's talk about what happened or try to revisit. We've slept, but it was like it didn't even happen. And it was, I want to go in for a hug or go into a kiss. And if I didn't feel like being affectionate, right? Because I was like, whoa, what happened was not okay. Like, let's at least talk about it. um, I got to the point where I was like, the type of behavior was not okay, but if you're at least saying sorry for it, I can accept that. It got
Mhm.
to a point where it's like, if you can't even take any accountability or show any remorse or feel bad about, your part in it. I'm not saying that I was perfect all the time. I had definitely behaviors and reactions that I was not proud of. That's not me. If there's nobody, else that pulls that out of me, and I own that. But so then it became my problem. Well, why don't you want to be affectionate? It's because you're cold, you're cold-hearted, you're distant, this is why and it was just like, wow. Wow.
Yeah. And that's where I'm talking about. You can either go in and give peace, then resolve this by you completely self sacrificing, or you hold your ground and say, no, what happened was not okay.
I think the hard thing with those two is like, Nicole, what you were saying about like, okay, well, if you could just say sorry, I'll be good with that. Right. It's like you kind of get conditioned to not only be the one putting in all the emotional labor, but then accepting just like the bare minimum, truthfully. And I know too, like, at least in my experience, like anytime I did fawn and kind of like put in a little bit more emotional labor, um, it's almost like I was admitting to him that it was my fault. And then it would get used again, like in later arguments too. Of like, well,
Mhm.
remember that time that you did this? And see, you even admitted you were wrong.
It's
And
taking
it
on
kind of just gets used as like, okay, well, maybe I am wrong. Like, why am I, getting upset about this now?
Yeah. When you were just giving in to keep things peaceful because they won't meet you in the middle, but then they use you giving in as proof that you were in the wrong. So, how are you with boundaries now? Do you have healthy people in your life that actually give you the space for boundaries?
Feel like I am getting there for sure. It's not comfortable. I still honestly get like really anxious and I can feel like my heart racing and my throat kind of tighten up when I do have to advocate for myself. Um, but I'm really thankful that the people I have in my life right now can kind of notice that. And I've had multiple people kind of like encourage boundaries out of me a little bit. Like, hey, you don't have to say yes to this. And that's been very healing for me. Um, Going from being essentially punished to having boundaries to kind of like being encouraged to have them. It still doesn't
Mhm.
feel good. Like I still second guess myself a lot, but it's, I'd say, moving in the right direction.
I like the word you use there, self advocacy, that boundaries really, I mean, what boundaries are is us being able to care for ourselves. As a child, we put boundaries on our kids, which are things like don't play in the street and brush your teeth every day. Okay. Those are parent boundaries for a child. But really, those boundaries are for the purpose of that child staying safe and then stepping into their own right of self care as they grow up. So here we are as an adult, and I'm going to brush my teeth every day and I'm not going to go play in the street, but these boundaries are for me. I can put those boundaries in place. Well, that also includes I'm not going to answer my phone after 11 o'clock at night or whatever time I want it to be. It's going to include that, I'm not going to book everything over the weekend. I'm going to say no to some things so I can have some time for me. These are boundaries, but really boundaries are self-care. I think. I mean, a lot of the boundaries at least are self-care. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely would.
Yeah, and I think as people pleasers, you don't estimate the power of taking care of yourself or saying no. For me, I think part of it is just my priorities have shifted a little bit. I think part of that's getting to the other side of the divorce. I think age is playing into it a little bit as well, that I'm looking at things a little bit different with a different lens, but um I think to your point, Miranda, when you said people are encouraging you to do that, the first time you maybe assert yourself or advocate for yourself and it's respected or it's heard and you really feel it's like, wow, this doesn't have to be that hard. So it is really around, I think, the people around you, um, that's it doesn't feel hard when they're healthy.
Mhm.
Both.
Yeah.
So
I think what I'm sorry, I thought of this while you were talking. I remember like one of those people that was pretty encouraging with me. They were talking to me and I was like getting kind of like, I don't know, this feels like an argument is starting to come up. And I just calmly said to them like, "Hey, I don't like the way you're talking to me right now." And they were like, "Oh gosh, I'm sorry. Okay, let's take a breather here." And like I almost wanted to thank them. Like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much."
Yes. Yeah, I can relate to that. The first time I had set a boundary with something like that, something that seems so simple, but I was terrified to voice it because we've gotten so many reactions throughout life. And I voiced it and it was easy. It was simple. It was, "Oh, yeah, no problem. We can pick this up later." Or even if they, "Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean," even that. And I'm like, wow, is that what it feels like to actually have boundaries be respected?
I've thought a lot about, wow, if you were to replay having the ability to do that in a conversation or a healthy relationship, and I play back so many scenarios through a couple decades, right? And I'm like, and I do it hurts me that it had to be so difficult because it really
Mhm.
just shouldn't. And I don't resonate about that as much as I at one period of time, I was in a constant, like, cycle thinking about those things and
Mhm.
just not trying to figure out, "Why was that so hard? Why was that so hard?" I spent so many years trying to figure it out, and it wasn't it was through this community a lot and a lot of your podcast, Renee, where it's like, just over and over, just reminding there is no explaining it is what it is, and you just have to find a certain level of acceptance and set your own boundaries.
Yeah. If you do find out why it was so hard, let me know because I'll put that on a podcast.
I was stuck in that place for so long, and I had so many people like, You will never there will never be an
Mhm.
answer, so you
No.
need to figure out how else to move to the next level, and the next level is focusing on what you can
Yeah.
have.
Life doesn't really have to be as hard as we make it. I'm gonna say we, but in the marriage, what I was dealing with, life did not have to be as hard as it was. Thank you both so much for taking your time here to speak to this audience. Is there anything you want to say to those out there listening that are going, boy, I don't know how to set boundaries, or they're trying to figure their way through this? Any words of encouragement for them?
I think setting boundaries is one of the best things that you can ever do for yourself. Um and I think if you're really, really terrified of setting them with the narcissistic person in your life, I kind of did this where it's like, okay, let's try setting boundaries with people we know are safe to kind of like build yourself up to it. But I think it really is one of the best ways that you can care for yourself.
Yeah, I would agree completely. And one thing I've said often is don't start with the hardest person in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, start with the easier, the people who will respect it so you can get a feel for what is normal or what is healthy at least.
Yeah, I would say just keep trying and start small. Start really small. If you need, maybe turning your phone off for an hour. So something you do for yourself that you're not necessarily having a voice quite yet. And then, slowly just keep trying. And I agree with Miranda, like start with healthy people who are going to respect that and give you that, oh my gosh, this is how it feels to have that respected and not feel like it has to be so difficult. So yeah, I would say start small and just keep practicing and surround yourself with people, healthy people who respect you and honor you.
hmm And in fact, that's one of the boundaries that I put in place for myself is that I will surround myself with people who will honor and respect healthy boundaries, and in fact have their boundaries with me as well. And we can just give each other that space. So, okay. Thank you both for being here and for being a part of this community chat.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I truthfully, when I started kind of like figuring out what was going on in my relationship, your podcast was like a godsend. There was like so much verbiage that I could finally like use in my life. So I'm just really, really thankful.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you for saying that. And that is absolutely my mission, is to help those who are living it to have the words to put to it. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I feel the same. I had through my journey, it was, I'd fall asleep to your podcast. I would wait for the next one to come out and just it really helped bring words and feel wow, just separate and be able to clarify what was normal and what was not normal because it was so jumbled and it was
Mhm.
hard to differentiate that and that really really helped. And I always thought, "Oh my gosh, I'd never be able to get to the point where I'd be able to articulate or." And so I hope like so many other people, you yourself and other people that you've had as guests, uh, I hope that this helps.
Yeah. Well, now look at both of you. You're both here sharing your words with the
Yeah.
community. So thank you. I want to thank these two ladies for showing up, being vulnerable, and adding their voices to this community. This is exactly what CNG is all about. If what you heard today resonated with you, I want to encourage you with something that both of these ladies said. Start small and start with safe people. You don't have to set the hardest boundary first. Practice with people who will honor it so you can start to feel what it's supposed to feel like. If you're not already part of our community, I would love to have you. You can find us at covertnarcissism.com. The link is in the show notes, and we have future CNG chats coming, and I really hope that you will sign up and join us. And if this episode helped you feel a little less alone today, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I'll see you next time, and I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. If you've been listening for a while, you may already understand what's happening in your relationship. You can see the patterns, you can name the behaviors, but maybe you still feel stuck in the same cycle. This is where coaching comes in. It's not about learning more, it's about having the support to finally apply what you already know and begin to move forward. If you're ready for that next step, I invite you to join me in my coaching program. You can learn more about it at covertnarcissism.com. Your story matters, and you deserve to be heard without judgment. Check out my coaching services at my website, again, covertnarcissism.com. And don't forget to subscribe, to thumbs up, to follow, to like this podcast so that you can get more empowering episodes like this one, and to help us continue spreading the word so that our community can continue to grow. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes and not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those she has talked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support any allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of this material and information provided.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.